Well, welcome everybody to the latest event from Leeds Theosophical Society. As you know, we've been doing these online Zoom events now since the summer of 2020, so it's about 3.5 years now, and I think we're getting up to about 100 different events that we've done so far. During this autumn season, we're trying a little bit of an experiment in which we're not just having talks, I'm doing conversations with a number of interesting people who have different insights into Theosophy and the ageless wisdom and other interesting aspects of occult science. So that's the idea. People often think that a conversation is a better way of conveying this rather than somebody just talking for 40 or 45 minutes. So this afternoon, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Erica Georgiades, who will be known to many of you. And it's certainly no understatement to say that she's one of the most active and influential theosophists operating at the moment. She was born in Brazil, and she now lives in Greece, where she has lived for the last several decades with her husband and daughter. She is a vice president of the Greek section, I believe, but she also has many, many other activities, including for the past few years, the director of the European School of Theosophy, which was set up 40 years ago. She's also the director of the School of Wisdom in Adyar in India. And one of the most interesting projects that she's been involved in just lately, along with other people, including Juliet Bates and Iphigenia Castamoniti, is reissuing Lucifer magazine. This was the magazine set up by Madame Blavatsky with its supposedly then controversial name. And she's reissued the whole of Lucifer under subject headings. And I don't know exactly how many volumes there will be, but I think it's more than 50. And at the moment, they're also reissuing many of the very interesting works of Dr. Franz Hartmann, an early theosophist. And on top of that, running a family, doing all these things, she's studying for a PhD as well. So welcome, Erica, and thank you very much indeed for joining us this afternoon. Can I begin by just getting you to talk a little bit about your early days in Theosophy and what drew you into all this? What gave you an interest in these timeless ideas which are contained in the ageless wisdom teachings?
Hi, Dean. Many thanks for the invitation. I would like first to apologize for my voice because I have returned from Cairo with pneumonia and I'm recovering. So I might interrupt from time to time my speech. It's truly an honor to be here at the Leeds Lodge, which is a lodge for me doing a very important work in the Theosophical Society for the Theosophical Society in the United Kingdom, and what I think is the most influential lodge in that country today, and the most promising also. So it's truly an honor to be with you here today, Tin and Paul and all of you. So, when I was a child, I had many psychic experiences, both psychic and the spiritual experiences, I could say. And I started my search very young. When I was 12 years old, I was trying to find answers for many of the experiences that I had. And I joined a number of different organizations, including the Adventist Church, where I was active for 1 month. And but I did not like it, and I left. I visited in Brazil. I was born in Brazil. A number of Afro-religious groups. Also, their practice did not inspire me very much. My mother suggested me to join a morgue, the Rosicrucians, but I read very careful their pamphlets, and I wasn't inspired by that either. So I gave up my search, And eventually, when I was around 20 years old, one day I was at the library of my mom. She had a very large library with more than 7,000 books. And accidentally, I chose a book which was entitled in Portuguese, The Theosophical Society Today. In the cover of the book, there was a picture of our past international president, Rada Burnier. So when I saw the name Theosophical Society, I don't know, intuitively, I felt that that was the place I was searching for. And I became a member the next day. And that's how I find myself here today.
It's very interesting, isn't it, the way that we are sometimes guided in slightly mysterious ways down particular paths in life. I mean, my own experience of coming into this involved a strange series of coincidences, which I won't go into, but I'd been searching for something for a long time without finding anything which really struck a chord with me. The religions didn't do it. Science didn't do it. I always knew from an early age, like you, that there was something much deeper than this. And it's often said as a cliche in theosophical circles, oh, people are not interested in these things until they reach 40 or 50 or whatever. But I don't think that's the case. I think many young people, you and certainly I, were asking these big questions when we were young. What's the purpose of all this? Where did we come from? Where are we going? What is the truth behind it all? Do you think there is that hunger today amongst younger people for these kinds of ideas? Because I suspect there is.
Yes, Tim, I think there is. I think that many young people out there, they're seekers, and they are searching for answers for questions like the ones you mentioned. But it's somehow it's difficult to find to come in contact with the theosophical literature, because we are a very small organization. Even though our literature is out there. And the Theosophical Society itself is a very small organization with only around 18,000 members worldwide. So, and we have we do not have a strong social impact in our work, through our work, as it was happening in the 19th century when Madame Blavatsky and Annie Besant and the early pioneers of the Theosophical Society were doing their work. And one of the reasons why I think that we do not have a strong impact in the world today is that we are not truly engaged as theosophists with what's happening out there in terms of challenges. So we don't see, for example, works focusing on how artificial intelligence may influence spirituality, theosophy, and even the future of humanity itself. We don't see a lot of work focusing on contemporary problems. And this is one of the reasons why perhaps it's difficult for young people to find the Theosophical Society, because the young generation is very much interested in what's happening in the world today and in finding solutions for the problems that we have. And early Theosophists, our pioneers, when we were doing the work with Lucifer, we came across a lot of material which showed how engaged they were with what was happening during their time. And that is what gave them such a powerful projection in the society during that period of time. So I believe that we are missing that. What do you think?
How do you think we can deal with that, Erica? Are there ways that we can try and engage with younger people or people who are not interested in or don't know about Theosophy in other more imaginative ways? I have many conversations with people about using things like social media videos rather than, long books and lectures and that sort of thing. Is that where we're going wrong? Or is it the fact that we refuse to be engaged with world problems? Is that the essential issue?
Well, I think it's a combination of both of them, Tim, because from the moment that the organization or the Theosophical movement itself is not very much engaged with what's going on in the world, we don't see a powerful presence in social media and in important channels of theosophists and of the theosophical work. So one thing leads to the other. So I think that if we change our approach, necessarily we will also change the ways that we interact with the world around us. And many members of the Theosophical Society, they're quite aged, as you know, and they are not also, this is another problem, they are not very familiar, even though they use the internet, but they are not very familiar with the ways that all this is working today. I don't know. So it's difficult for them to engage in more powerful, in ways that would have a better results today, and send the message out there.
Okay, let's look at some of the specific things that you've been doing recently. For the last few years, you've been director of the European School of Theosophy. Tell us a little bit about that and about its past for those who are unfamiliar with it.
Well, the European School of Theosophy was founded by Geoffrey Farthing, Adam Workup, and Ian Hoskins in around 1982, and in England. In the beginning, they planned to create a Theosophical Center, much like the Crotona Center of the Theosophical Society in the United States. They wanted to create a large library and a place where theosophists could come and be inspired. Their first meetings were organized in Tackles Park. Sorry. And they soon they started. They adopt a nomad way of working, which is meeting different countries across Europe, taking theosophy to different places instead of just staying in one country and waiting for people to come over. I'm not sure why they did not follow up in creating the Theosophical Center they envisioned to create. This is part of something that I would like very much to happen, perhaps here even in Greece. But this is another topic. So the first time I came in contact with the European School of Theosophy was in 2005, when Rada Burnier visited the Theosophical Society in Greece. She was hosted at my home. And the TS in Greece at the time had a problem. We had only 6 lodges active. She suggested me to found a lodge to help the section to keep on as a section, because the Theosophical section, according to the international bylaws, needs to have 7 active lodges. And then she suggested, we founded the Hypatia Lodge to help the TS in Greece at the time. And then she suggested that the European School of Theosophy, to the directors of the European School of Theosophy, to meet here in Greece to help to strengthen the Greek section. And this was the first time I came in contact with the European School of Theosophy. After that, I participated, I think, in 3 more meetings only. But I established a very nice relationship with Ingrid Eghard Evans, who was the prior director of the school. And one day I was at home in 2017, and Ingrid sent me a message, which was a Facebook message with the symbol of 2 hands passing a light. And I said, "Hi, Ingrid, how are you? What is this?" She said, "Eric, I would like to invite you to join and become one of the co-directors of the European School of Theosophy. And that was totally a surprise for me, because I wasn't very active in the work of the school. I had been engaged in the work only 3 times, as I said. And she told me that if I would not accept the invitation, the European School of Theosophy would close. Of course, I did accept the invitation, and here I am today.
Okay, you've just had your annual meeting in Egypt, and I believe next year the meeting is going to be in Switzerland. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the meeting in Egypt was a dream of mine from a very long time. Even though, especially in Alexandria, Egypt, as you know, Madame Blavatsky in the Key to Theosophy mentions that the Egyptian hierophant Potamun was the person who coined the word theosophy. And after that, the word was used by Ammonius Saccas and the Neoplatonists in Alexandria. So Alexandria is the cradle of theosophy, the birthplace of theosophy. And of course, naturally, I always wanted to organize a conference there. I tried to organize a conference in Alexandria, Egypt in 2012. It wasn't a work connected with the European School of Theosophy. It was from the Hypatia Lodge. We organized everything, my trip to Alexandria, we closed the hotel, and this was in January of 2011. I was supposed to go there to see the place and everything. And then the Egyptian revolution started. And then we transferred the conference to Greece. Then we said, okay, we need to do something in Alexandria, Egypt. And then again, we tried to organize the conference in Alexandria, Egypt, and it was incredibly difficult. First, the Alexandria Library reserved a place for us upon our request, a conference room, and so on. But after we released the call for papers for the International Theosophical History Conference, which is the academic conference, actually, which was organized in Alexandria, as the call for papers included Theosophy, esotericism, Freemasonry, I think they did not like it, and they informed us that the conference room was not available anymore. So we went on.
You got cancelled. You got cancelled, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we closed another conference room, and soon after, and then we announced the program, the Theosophical History Conference in Alexandria, and then they approached us, the hotel, after 3 months, and they told us, well, we need your program for approval. And they said, what do you mean? Yes, you need to send a program for approval and a copy of all participants' passports. I said, and I had closed our accommodations for participants in the conference. And then I said, but what do you mean? She said, yes, the hotel belongs to the Egyptian army. And there is a change in the policy. And I said, oh, I see. Look, we decided that we will organize the conference at your hotel. Thank you very much. I kept the rooms reserved there. Actually, I stayed there when I was in Alexandria, and it was a very safe place. So what happened is that the conference was announced, but we didn't have a place to meet. And that was a tremendous amount of stress. But we kept searching, and eventually we closed the Foreigner 5-star hotel conference room in Alexandria where we would have our meeting. But 7 days before our trip, the war started. And 2 days, exactly 2 days, I remember it was a Sunday, I was in a meeting at the Theosophical Society in Greece. I started receiving many messages in my mobile, and I look at the messages, And they say there has been a shooting in Alexandria and it's very dangerous. What are we going to do? And I literally bent my knee at that moment because I said, there is the war and there has been this shooting. So I needed to close extra security for our meeting. I could not cancel because we had already Theosophists and the scholars in Egypt, and it was not possible to cancel. I lived a great drama because I traveled with my family crying and very scared. So I never felt such tremendous amount of pressure. So when I arrived in Alexandria, well, basically when we entered the van to go to Alexandria, we had Bjark, who is a scholar, he just finished his PhD in the van. And then he had printed his PhD thesis, and in the cover there was a giant emblem of the Theosophical Society with the stag of David. And he was showing it around, and I said, please remove the cover, and because it's not safe, people see it. So anyway, the conference hotel was actually located in the front of the ancient Caesarion, the place where Hypatia was killed. And we had no idea of that. We learned about there was quite a lot of tension in Alexandria and hostility towards foreigners. It was a challenging conference, but everything was wonderful. We had around 38 scholars, and I think it was one of the most wonderful international theosophical history conferences I ever have been. And what impressed me so much is that nobody canceled despite of the challenges. There was a spirit of brotherhood, which is something truly admirable. One of the first things I have done was to create a WhatsApp group. We actually had a small WhatsApp group for the committee, but then I invited all participants to join that WhatsApp group, and we were all connected. I said it's important we stay connected. Anyway, everything went fine, except for the first day, actually, of the conference was Friday 13, which was the date the Templars were killed. And in the opening of the conference, it was the day also that Hamas declared jihad against the Israelis around the world. So we were at the conference room. I have to share this. And one wall of the conference room was a window, was a glass. And everybody passing outside could see us. And we had a giant screen in our background. And then one of the first projections was the Star of David on the wall. In that moment, I truly got very tense, and I was looking all the time outside because I was very much aware of our environment. It was dangerous. And then after a certain point, I asked the speakers if they have any Star of David or if they would mention anything related to the Old Testament, to mention a low tone of voice using the mic. I was very concerned about the safety of everyone. It was a very tense situation. So anyway, just to close, we left from Alexandria to Luxor to begin the the European School of Theosophy, which was a great success. We had around 78 participants, and we had from 21 different countries. Interesting, nobody canceled their participation, even though we received a lot of emails with people scared. And I was telling them, my approach was always saying, if you are afraid, you are right, and you should not join us, cancel your participation. But you should know we have already Theosophists in Egypt, and we are moving forward. And when they were reading that, they said, no, we are coming, and may God protect us. And this was truly touching, because, these are people that they are like 75, 80 years old, they're not young. And when they knew that we had Theosophists in Egypt, they were overcoming their fear to join us. And that was very touching for me, Tim.
Well,
Yeah.
it clearly shows your dedication, and indeed the dedication and the refusal to be frightened. Now, next year, your location is in a neutral country, Switzerland, I believe, at the moment. So I don't think you'll encounter exactly the same kind of problems. I mean, you may encounter other problems with the Swiss, of course. But can you tell us a little bit about this conference and whether you've decided on a theme for it yet?
Yes, I will. Just to finish closing the chapter of Egypt, it's interesting to mention that we did not know also that 1873 was the year that Blavatsky actually left from Cairo. So we were there 150 years after Blavatsky left. And that was something that we became very, it was very touching when we learned here. So our conference will be next year, 2024, will be in Ascona, Switzerland. And the theme of the conference, I've spoken to the Ife today and mentioned to her, I didn't have time to talk to Juliet and the other members yet. But the thing that I have been thinking is to focus on is gateways to mystical states of consciousness. This is most probably the theme we will focus in Ascona next year. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll await further announcements on that. Now, in amongst all your many other roles in life, you are also director of the School of Wisdom at Adyar at the international headquarters of the Theosophical Society in India. How did you get involved in that, and what sort of work does that do?
Well, the international president, I think he liked the work that is happening in the European School of Theosophy, and he decided to invite me to direct the School of the Wisdom. And the School of the Wisdom is the main educational program of the Theosophical Society, we could say. We organize meetings in the campus and online. Right now, we have a meeting that will begin soon, focusing on Ahimsa and Jainism in Adyar. Last month, we have the School of the Wisdom with Bill Quinn also. In January, we'll have in Adyar the School of the Wisdom with Ravi Ravindra. And in March with Professor C. Shind and so on. Apart from that, we have also many online programs, both in Spanish and in English. And usually the School of the Wisdom in the campus is 2 weeks classes every day, except Saturdays and Sundays, from morning to late afternoon. And online, the School of the Wisdom offers programs for members worldwide, free of charge, which is usually 6 online classes, 2 hours each class, focusing on a specific topic. I will be giving a class in March, focusing on the voice of the silence.
Okay. Now, your recent activities, along with others, has involved the republication of Lucifer magazine, which was inaugurated by Madame Blavatsky during the last years of her life. And what you've done, I believe, is to take all the material from these magazines running over a number of years, both before and after Blavatsky's death, and you've reorganized them into subject areas. Can you tell us a little bit about the thinking behind that and what kind of impact this republication has had?
Well, I always wanted to do something with Lucifer. And, I started thinking to compile some material. And then I spoke to one of the members of our team, and she suggested that we should create a collection, the Lucifer collection, and then we started working on that. And basically it's an anthology, because the entire content of Lucifer is divided into topics: karma and reincarnation, the editorials, after life after death, and so on and so forth. So the thinking was to recover, to bring this material back to life, but not only. In my view, for us to understand the work of Blavatsky, for example, I know a lot of Blavatskians, and people, they say they are Blavatskians, and they are very proud of saying that. But they are not Blavatskians at all, because they do not do the work that Blavatsky was doing. Blavatsky was a person who was open-minded, you know. What they do is to dissect her teachings, to remove her teachings out of the context in which they were inserted. This was a practical and a very important work done in the 20th century, so that we could understand the let's say, the theosophical system in the secret doctrine, rounds and globes and all that. However, in doing this, they started focusing only on that, and they forgot the larger context within which that work was inserted, which is a context that involves a dialogue with scientists, scholars of the time, with scientists, and also a lot of comparative studies, a lot of talk on philosophy and religion, you know, a holistic way, a holistic approach to all of that. And then I said, okay, I think that for us to understand the work of Blavatsky, we need to look at what she was doing in her publication also, how she was working, what was her approach. And then it's amazing, because when you go back to Lucifer, or even to the Theosophists, you find a publication that does not exist anywhere today in the Theosophical world, which is a publication that included correspondence. It's a publication that allowed people to express their views pro or contra, against the ideas, even the ideas proposed by Blavatsky. A publication that would be very much engaged with what was happening in the world, a publication that would include a lot of Gothic material, ghost stories, vampires, and things like that, paranormal phenomena, and so on. And we don't find this type of work today anymore in any theosophical magazine. And
So do you think it's time that we had a new Lucifer magazine which would do those things and include things like the paranormal and UFOs and strange events and ghosts and hauntings and all these other things? Do you think we should do that?
Oh, I think that Blavatsky and the early Theosophists, they most certainly would have done that, and they were doing that. Can you imagine that Blavatsky? Well, it's amazing, but she did. I mean, she published in the 19th century an article from a man who supported the notion that Jesus was incarnated to prove that human beings were bisexual in the 19th century. And then Blavatsky added a note. The editors does not necessarily agree with the point of view expressed in this article. And it was an article published in 2 installments. And what I found very interesting, now that we are working in the post-Blavatsky years, that I have been through all the editorials of Annie Besant and G.R.S. Mead, is how Annie Besant also emphasizes the freedom of thought. And in one of her editorials, she mentioned Madame Blavatsky. She was publishing many articles she did not agree with, but she published to support this spirit of freedom that she was defending, you know, because the freedom of thought, even though is something that Annie Besant adopted as a formal part of the working of the Theosophical Society. When Annie Besant was president, it was in fact a work that Blavatsky, an aspect that Blavatsky emphasized very much in her writings. So when Annie Besant adopts the freedom of thought, it's not something that came out of her mind. It's something that she did because she was trained by Blavatsky also into that. And that's very much present in Lucifer, in the post-Blavatsky years and in the prior Blavatsky dies also. Yeah.
And of course, the decision, Erica, to use the name Lucifer at the time was deeply controversial because a lot of people just associated Lucifer with Satan or the devil. And so they thought that the name Lucifer was somehow worshipping black magic and so on. I mean, they were very, very brave people in those days. They were very cutting edge people. And I don't think things are quite that way today, are they?
No, they were very brave, and they were having fun thing, because in the second issue of Lucifer magazine, one of the Theosophists sent an hymn to Lucifer that could be sang in church. It was a church hymn dedicated to Lucifer. So you can just imagine, and then they published it. And then you can just imagine how much fun they were having. And also, you laugh a lot working with that, reading that material, but not only. It's very interesting also from a historical perspective, because especially in relation to the Theosophical Society in England, because you see how much they worked to try to build a section, a headquarters in London. This was very important for them. I mean, they wanted very much, Blavatsky envisioned, and Besant mentions, creating the greatest occult and esoteric library of Europe in London. Already when she was leaving, she was imagining something like that happening. They were literally collecting pennies. Sometimes they were meeting, the first place they had to meet, which was a place actually that a Countess Weichmaster gave to them. They did not have heating. They were sitting on the floor. They were, they faced immense difficulties to raise money to be able to build a headquarters in London, which for them was very important. And they were promoting Theosophy in the Theosophical van. I mean, me and members of the Lucifer team, we have laughed so much about the Theosophical van, because they were going around England with a horse, in a chariot with a horse, and the horse was very weak. Sometimes the horse could not go up the hill, and they were writing that they need some money to buy a new horse. They were sleeping under the stars in cold to promote Theosophy. So you see that these people, they truly believe in what they were doing, and they worked very hard to construct what we have today, And this is very touching, yeah.
Yeah, those levels of dedication don't seem to apply to the modern era. We won't really go into the current situation too much. I think people are familiar with it. Can I move on to another of your projects, Erica? This involves the work of someone I've always found very interesting, although I've not read a huge amount of his work, and this is Dr. Franz Hartmann, who was one of the early Theosophists, an American medical doctor who wrote a large amount of material, didn't he?
Well, Franz Hartmann, he was one of the most influential theosophical writers of the 19th century and early 20th century. He was a very active theosophist. He was a profound admirer of Madame Blavatsky. He was a mystic, a German mystic, and when he passed away, he actually left many of his estates to the Theosophical Society. Olcott needed to travel to Bavaria to discuss with his family members. So you see that from the beginning, he was a very active theosophist, but he always defended the freedom of thought, the spirit of freedom of thought. There are many instances that he may disagree with Blavatsky or with other theosophists on some topics. And he says it openly in a friendly spirit. We were living, that period of time was completely different from what we know today. And I think that he is one of the forgotten theosophists and mystics that we have. We have a great number of writers, of theosophical writers and mystics, that they have contributed with an immense amount of literature, beautiful literature. They are forgotten. So what happened is that someone saw that we were doing the Lucifer collection, and we were approached initially to publish four or five books that have been translated from German to English for the first time. And then, of course, we started working with that. We accepted. They approached different theosophical publishing houses. Nobody was interested. And then we thought also, why not then to create a collection with the entire work of Hartman? And then we are working on that. And it has been a wonderful experience for everyone involved in this work, because we are bringing back to life someone who is an amazing mystic, has been forgotten. There are also other theosophists, many others, that they have been completely forgotten, and their work is buried somewhere in some library. And I think that this is an important work we should do also. Of course, we should move forward and contribute creating new literature, a literature that is engaged with what's happening in the world today. But we also should bring forward this amazing heritage that we have in terms of literature.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, just on a final note, I'm aware that you're struggling with your voice, so we won't prolong this more than for a couple of other minutes. What we'll do when we've just completed this part is, if there are any comments or questions, obviously if you can put your screen on and unmute yourself. But my final question really, Erica, is what are your present studies involving now? I know you're working towards a qualification. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what the subject is?
Yes, look, I have finished a Master of Research in Religious Experience, and the focus of my dissertation was mystical categories of religious experience, religious experience in the voice of the silence. And I have finalized my dissertation, and I will have a reply from them on the 12th of December. And I plan to start my PhD also focusing on the practical aspect, on applied theosophy. This is what I am interested on. I'm not interested much in theory. I'm interested in applied theosophy. And I'm currently working on my PhD proposal. So this is a work of around 150 pages that I have finalized my dissertation. And after I have feedback from them, I will probably publish it in a booklet format. And my work aimed to see what types of mystical experiences Blavatsky emphasizes in the voice of the silence. And I cannot mention a lot of that yet, because my work is still under revision in the hands of the committee. And I cannot make it public, but I am looking forward to share it with all of you after I have the position. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we all wish you the best of luck in that. And what I wonder is when you get time to sleep and be with your family. That's the thing, because you seem to be so busy all the time with everything. So, it's a fantastic contribution that you're making. I think some people may... I'd like to widen the discussion, if possible, to, explore again. And as I say, we've had a number of these conversations about how we find modern ways of presenting these timeless ideas. So if people have any thoughts or comments or questions, if you could raise your hand in the chat box and unmute yourselves.
And open your video.
And open your video as well. That would be extremely helpful. I was wondering perhaps whether Anne might have had some thoughts on this, given the fact that we've had a number of discussions about how to present these ideas in a more contemporary and relevant, and indeed, as Erica said, practical way. I think, as someone who likes practical things, that's a route I would very much want to go down. So do you have any thoughts, Anne?
Yes, thank you. It was good to be here with all of you. And I love that Lucifer is being published again, and Franz Hartmann, but we always seem to be looking back. We look back at Blavatsky, we look back at these teachings. Again, in my comment over here, it's 2023, and you mentioned the application of the Theosophical teachings is your focus. Why can't the Theosophical Society actually begin to teach self-application in our daily lives? That's where I think we should spend the money. for the School of Wisdom and all of the things that the Theosophical Society is supposed to do is to bring these teachings out into the modern world. What are your plans, Erica, to bring it up to the year that we are in the world of today?
Hi, Anne. It's very nice seeing you.
Hello.
I think that's a very nice, very important question. And what are my plans also? You are absolutely right. And I mentioned that we cannot just focus on the past, even though the work that we're doing, it's important because this material is buried and forgotten there. We need to focus in the present and what we will do now, from now on. And applied theosophy, as you said, is my main focus. What I personally will try to do is to transform what my studies to write a book and try to be more proactive in a more contemporary way so that we can transform this amazing, beautiful heritage that we have in something more practical for the world today. And one thing that interests me very much is also the artificial intelligence. And I think that we need, as Theosophists, to engage more on this topic, to see the impact of technology in spirituality, in Theosophy, in our lives, and our dependence also, using all this technology. Up to what point or to what extent are we very dependent on technology, on internet, and all that, and try to promote a more human way of life, not so dependent on machines also, because this over-dependence on machine is somehow making many of us to lose our humanity. And then we have to try to find ways to keep this humanity on. So this is something I have been working on. I do not have an answer ready to give you. But I do have to say that when we talk about Theosophical Society, we should not expect anything from the Theosophical Society. We should not expect anything from anyone. We should try our best to do something within our potential or our limitations, to do something on our own. Because if we will expect others to do something, and we will be disappointed, So I think that we should work to materialize this vision that you just mentioned. And this is up to each one of us.
Yeah. Thank you for answering my question. And I do have expectations from the Theosophical Society. And I appreciate you taking your time to share that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people now are starting to look on things in terms of a wider theosophical movement rather than, just as a partisan society. I know that I certainly do. And I speak to people all the time who I think are beginning to share this particular point of view. Anyway, we've got Andrew's hand up. So if you care to unmute yourself, Andrew, welcome. I'm afraid we can't hear you for some reason. I can see you talking, but we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself? No, you're still muted, I'm afraid, Andrew.
He's not muted. Now you can speak now, Andrew. Try to speak. No, we cannot listen to you. Yeah, perhaps you can write on the chat your question.
No, I'm afraid we can't hear you, Andrew. So if you could write your question.
You just write your question in the chat.
Okay, let's go to Jayanthi. Can you put your camera on, maybe, Jayanthi, with your question, and unmute yourself? Yeah, good.
I can't put my camera on for some reason.
Okay, not to worry.
But I think it is because I think you host has I think close my camera or something, saying that you have to open my camera, I think.
Okay, well, just doesn't matter, just the question anyway.
No, my question was that I was very interested. Yeah, I was listening to you for a long time, and then what I found is that we need to have the initiative to do things for the society and not expect anything from the society as such. I understand that. that the society can be a wonderful forum in troubled times to bring people who are young, people who don't have, anything to count on, to find meaning and purpose, whichever may be their calling. It can be any religion, it can be any type of spirituality which can be productive to those individuals. So how can we make this a forum? Since we already have a forum called Theosophical Society, we need to incorporate, young people and make it appealing to them, or, maybe make it less exclusive than what we are right now. Because more and more people, originally probably this was intended as a forum to share common ideas in religion and, looking at things together and look at the commonalities and find the space to have love in the world, love, peace, and, connection with the divine in the world. Okay, I don't know whether I articulated it clearly. So how can we make this available for forum, available for youngsters, so that, they can also get connected and find meaning and purpose?
Okay, so this is a very important point. First of all, I would like to say, when I mentioned that we should not expect anything from the Theosophical Society, is that there are different Theosophical Societies. Then there is, for example, each section of the Theosophical Society is independent. Each section has a different direction. So which Theosophical Society are we talking about? Are you talking about the Theosophical Society of your section? Are you talking about the Theosophical Society worldwide? So we have to be clear about that. For example, here in the Theosophical Society in Greece, probably the new direction will very much focus in the ancient Hellenic world, in philosophy, and so on and so forth. Many theosophists here, some theosophists may not be very happy with that, because they think that the focus should be more on Blavatsky and so on and so forth. So there is the spirit of independence. Each section, not spirit, there is, according to the bylaws of the Theosophical Society, every section is independent. So when you ask the question, what can the Theosophical Society do? You have to be more clear what Theosophical Society you are talking about, your section or the international headquarters. The international headquarters exists to support the sections around the world, and it's offering a wonderful work for members worldwide online. Now, so it's natural when we are members of an organization to have some expectations, but as members, we are also free to materialize the work that we envision. So in this way, considering the great variety of leaderships that we have within the Theosophical Society, sometimes we should not expect them to do a work that we can do ourselves. And it was in this sense that I meant that. So the way that we can move forward in relation to the question of our friend now is that we ourselves can organize discussions like the Leeds Lodge is doing now, like the work that Annie Kelly is doing such a long time in her YouTube channel, like the writings of Eddie Billy Moria, like the work of the European. All these are works that are happening in different fronts from all of us. Of course, I understand that there is a feeling that something more strong or more impactful should happen through the Theosophical Society, and I agree with that, because many sections, they have a lot of money, something that other sections may not have. And then it comes the question, what are you doing with so much that you have, while we have so little are doing so much, So this is kind of hurtful for many of us, and I understand where are you coming from when you raise these questions, and I share your spirit of your concern, but there is not much that we can do, unfortunately, about that, except to move forward and think of ideas that become that which we would like to see materialized. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Eddie, you're sitting there. I don't know whether you have your hand up or not, but I'd like to bring you in anyway, if that's all right.
Well, thank you, Tim. In that case, I better put an invisible hand up. About 4 or 5 years ago, I was having dinner with Professor Richard Silberstein, who is a very, very leading member of the Theosophical Society in Australia, and of course, a world-famous scientist and founder of the Smynberg Institute of Neuroscience. And he said something very significant, that the Theosophical Society has been a victim of its own success. Just dwell on that. What does it mean to be a victim of your own success? I'll leave that with you. But since I'm also not in the best of voice, and we are a one voice, Erica, it's not the voice of the silence, but of one rather fluey, coldy voice. You mentioned Franz Hartmann, and I'm always struck by what he wrote in response to a question he was asked about the Rosicrucian Manifesto, and that would apply equally to any society like the Theosophical Society or the Rosicrucians. And he said, names have no meaning if they do not express the true character of a thing. To call a person a Rosicrucian, or for that matter, a Theosophist, does not make him one. So there is a difference between calling yourself a Theosophist and actually being one, and he makes this point very true. The real Theosophist, I'm paraphrasing, cannot be made. He must grow to be one by the expansion and the unfoldment of the divine power within him. And then Hartmann also says that the inattention to this truth is the cause that many churches and secret societies are far from being what their names outwardly express. So that should always be a warning sign to us. It should be like the sword of Damocles hanging over our heads. And that sword should drop on our heads if we fail to make notice of what Franz Hartmann also said.
Thank you, Eddie. Franz Hartmann, he was very much emphasizing self-knowledge, which for him is synonymous with theosophy, you know. Yeah. And he was very much saying it doesn't matter, any organization, any institution, all of that have no meaning if you do not practice self-knowledge. And this practice of self-knowledge for him is something he emphasized across all his writings, is the union of the lower self with the higher self. It's a spiritual illumination, in essence, he refers about. That only from that perspective, only when we achieve this state of enlightenment, that we can truly become of service to the world. So he had very high stakes, and not everyone. We need to understand. Not everyone can achieve that level of consciousness, which he mentions about. And this is something challenging. Many people may reach that level, such levels of consciousness in future incarnations. So we cannot expect that everyone will think or even understand what Hartmann was saying. The depth of his message is the same of Krishnamurti, and is in essence the same of Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky says, when she talks about knowledge, that the only knowledge, we can only know something when we become one with our higher conscissness. That only through that lens we can know truly something. That knowledge through sense impressions is no knowledge at all, but it's an illusion. So both Krishnamurti and Blavatsky and Hartmann,
and Paul Brunson.
Yeah, they had the same message. But we are also members of an organization, And as members, we would like to see the organization growing and having a stronger impact in the world. So I understand the questions, what can the Theosophical Society do to become more, to have a stronger impact? And I also understand the need, that we have as members to see this working, materializing, and being more impactful in the world that we live today. So it's a valid problem. We should not always set the stakes so high for everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, the gentleman who has rejoined us as Zoom user, are you able to unmute yourself now?
Yeah, does this work? Are you able to hear
Yes,
me?
it does. It does work.
Oh,
yes.
perfect. Okay, ideal. I'm not sure what happened before. A couple things. First of all, was very enthused by this meeting. I actually found out about it. I was hoping to go to one of your videos on karma and nations down in Edinburgh. Ended up the rain caught me up, and I looked up to see if there was any other screenings of it, and stumbled upon this meeting. And speaking to that, I think a big emphasis in this group was how do you outreach to the next generation? How do you, get the message of Theosophy to that next kind of, torchbearers of this thing that's been going on forever. And I had a couple ideas that I'd love to throw to the group and see if any of you guys think it would work, along with, you guys are much more familiar with how the system works, how, stuff. This is my first engagement with anything to do with the lodge, although I've been looking at Theosophy for a while, as with other esoteric organizations. And similar to your story about having found Theosophy to be the kind of purest iteration of this, ancient school of thought, I was quite comforted by Theosophies. I was stumbling upon Madame Bratsky's Key to Theosophy really changed my life and my perspective. But in terms of young people, I really do think. My name's Andrew Martin. I forgot to enter it when I came back in. I'm currently studying international relations at University of St. Andrews, and I think the idea of practical Theosophy as a solution to the world's issues, as opposed to a theoretical kind of thing that is just mulled about in a group, is really going to be what pushes Theosophy into the next age, into the next generation. I really think that, particularly my area of studies is the Middle East, and looking at the conflicts there, looking at the sectarian divides, I think that Theosophy offers an outlet from which these questions can be theorized in a nonpartisan setting. I really think going forward in international relations, Theosophy is a huge thing. Reaching young people, there's a couple of things. So one, books are great. I love books. I love reading. A lot of my generation doesn't. A lot of them are getting their information primarily from video contents. They like to see the images with the speech itself. So the idea of video essays has really taken off in the last couple of years, which is essentially you take a book, you take an essay, you take a thesis, and you just add visuals to it. There's lots of animators I know that do it for much less important topics. But essentially, even for a book like Key to Theosophy, which is question-answer, being able to animate those people having a conversation, being able to provide something that people can watch, either in the background, in the foreground, just getting it out there. I think a video like that would really take off and change a lot of people's minds. It might not be the authoritative. Again, you can't annotate, you can't reference and stuff like that. But as a window into Theosophy, as a way to kind of introduce people to the general concepts, short form video essays between 10 to 20 minutes, and then longer form ones that are the compilations of the books, I really think will open up the gates to a lot of people of my generation who I know, in having conversations with people in my university, there's a lot of people seeking. And they're seeking for something that they can't necessarily find the answer to, because organized religion, and there's trauma with that, they haven't really been able to find it. Whereas I think Theosophy provides an outlet from which a lot of perspectives can be, heard and accounted for. The other thing is student events. I honestly think if Theosophy went into the university, as many organizations do, is similar, and hosted student events, hosted talks, hosted lectures, invited students, got their participation, rented out a cafe for an evening and just had a person such as yourself, an influential Theosophist, come in, tell the story of how they got engaged, tell what the society is needing, tell what I think a lot of people would be enthused by that. As well, talking to the digital library, when you were talking about your mother having 7,000 books on, I imagine, a variety of topics, and Blatsky as well, hoping to have the largest, esoteric library in Europe. I honestly think that digital libraries are the way to go. We're in a day and age where all of the world's sacred texts are in digital format. They're all translated into English. All of the major theological works are mostly digitized. And having a central platform from which aspiring seekers can, go and see the breadth of content, really see what's out there, have it all accumulated, and then download it onto their iPads, their computers, even having an app from which teaching can be, instituted. I mean, if this meeting was more well known, I know many people in my university that would have loved to come to this and would have loved to ask questions. So I think just in reaching the generation, you have to go where they are. And I think that's the difference. It's not necessarily getting them to where the Theosophical Society is at now or where it's traditionally been, but embracing where Theosophy can be, which is that we're in a day and age where you don't need someone to read the books for you. The books are there, and if they're made in a more accessible format. So the question I have, particularly in terms of AI, is a buddy of mine in computer science is developing an AI system that he's hoping to bring public in the next couple of weeks, mainly oriented towards the corporate setting. But essentially what it is, and I think the problem with Theosophy and AI these days, is the AI is looking at the entire internet. So when you're asking it questions, it's not really
Andrew, if I may just interrupt there, I think it'd be good to give Erica a chance to respond to what you've already said. I mean, the AI issue.
Sorry about that.
Very interesting, but I think it's something that we should perhaps deal with at another stage. Also, if you'd like to send me an email, I'll put my email in the chat box. I can then put you on our mailing list, and so you can pass that on to your friends and colleagues for future meetings. Is that okay?
That would be amazing. That would be phenomenal. Yeah.
Thank you very much. But let's just park up the AI issue. I can see us discussing this in some depth at perhaps a future meeting, but let Erica respond to your comments that you've just made anyway.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you. Look, we have the Federation of Young Theosophists, which has been revived in the last 3 years or so, which has gathered a large number of young theosophists around the world, and they are doing really very interesting work in many fronts. So it's not like that we don't have young members. We do have. The major problem is how to let's say, to engage in a more, in terms of a discourse, in a more contemporary ways today, because there is a lot of focus in a 19th century literature, 19th century language, and so on. And it's not so meaningful for many people today because we have many other challenges that were not there in the 19th century. And then we need to approach those challenges today. And that's the major problem. We have had ideas also. For example, I wanted very much to create video games, to create a movie. We have discussed it even with Tim Wyatt many times to create a space for people to create documentaries and movies inspired by theosophy and so on, and create competitions of videos and all that. So there are many ideas, but also a lot of people who have many ideas, they do not have the money to materialize those ideas, because to make a video game, to make an app, to make movies, to make videos, to animate all this material, you need money. You know that. You need expertise, knowledge. And then we face some challenges in terms of that. So the video game project could not be materialized, and many other things. So it's like a process, that we are trying to find ways to do. Now, the University of Copenhagen has a department focusing on theosophy and esotericism, and they offer actually degrees, MA and PhDs, and this is funded by the Blavatsky Trust. So we just had the conference in Alexandria with many academic scholars from different universities across the world participating also. So there is a presence of theosophy in the universities also. It's not like that we do not exist at all in the academic world. But I don't think that would be easy to get the permission of any university for theosophists to go in there to promote theosophy itself. The universities are not open very much to that, and I'm sure you know that, except for the scholar work, not for promoting work in this level. And I hope in the future to have the opportunity to listen to your question about AI. Thank you.
Okay. Well, look, thank you very much indeed, everybody. I think we'll draw proceedings to a close here. Sometimes less is more on these occasions. But may I thank Erica very much for her contribution this afternoon. And I know you were struggling with your voice, but you did extremely well. So thank you very much for sparing the time. And thank you, everyone, for your ideas and your participation. Just to remind you that a fortnight today, on the 19th of November, we'll be doing another of these conversations with another of our regular contributors, Teresa Keast, who, as many of you know, is a yoga teacher. She's a healer, and she also has some very, very interesting things to say about the etheric body. Her work is very, very practical, and I know that she helps an awful lot of people. So I hope we can enjoy your presence then. And in the meantime, it just remains for me to wish you a very good week and enjoy whatever it is that you're doing. So thank you very much, everybody, and
Thank you
bye-bye
very
for
much.
now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.